Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 33 of the More Smarter Show with your hosts, Jake and Dylan. Jake, what do we have on the agenda today? Today, we've got a special guest, Marc Weisi. And he said his last name is like Y and C, the two letters. So that's cool. Mark, tell us what you do, and then I will get into how we know each other.
Absolutely. So I work in real estate now full time as of about 7 or 8 months ago. I came from the finance, had a career in finance and in Wall Street, and transitioned slowly over the course of 8 or so years into real estate full time. Now have some exposure to multifamily, some short term rentals, and then now full hospitality.
Yeah, so hospitality. So that's how we know each other, actually. So you're from New Jersey, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but
from
we
North
met.
Jersey.
Yeah, so we're both from New Jersey, but we met in Puerto Rico. So Mark is one of the owners of a boutique hotel in Puerto Rico. So this isn't a real estate show or podcast, and we always try to make that distinction. This is a business strategy podcast, a More Smarter Show. So although we're all three of us are real estate guys, we try to stick to the business side of things. So why don't you start by telling us about this boutique hotel that we met at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think first off, I got into hospitality just a short time ago, and I would say that it's actually closer to a true business than it is real estate. I mean, obviously you have the underlying real estate. If you own the real estate, you have that. But in terms of the day to day, it's much more operationally intensive than say like a long term rental or multifamily portfolio. But as far as how I got into it, it was a very incremental thing. I started off in North Jersey, just getting into real estate through condos and then small multifamily. Eventually graduated through the help of a lot of mentorship and a lot of peer and partner help into commercial multifamily, so like larger complexes, and got into that. And then, I was doing that for a little while and realized that it wasn't as maybe productive in terms of my goals, which were to leave my W 2 and to do this full time. And so at that point, I was looking into different businesses, and I had some friends who were doing hospitality, particularly boutique hotels, and started learning more about that and all the different possibilities and kind of levers that you can pull in that business versus just standard long term rentals. And, was really attracted towards that. And met a partner who we were, a friend that we both have in common, and we started looking at Puerto Rico together.
Now, did you start off with doing it real estate kind of part time with your W 2? Did you start off having this in mind where you wanted to be the full time pro, or you were like, real estate investing is a good idea, I'm just going to do that part time?
Yeah, definitely didn't start off with like any kind of aspiration of leading my. Got into Wall Street at kind of a funny time. 2011 is when I graduated college. Around that time was just on the tail end of the great financial crisis, and so there was a lot of upheaval. It was a very unsteady job market. I saw a lot of people that worked in finance for years and decades in some cases that were really worried about where their next paycheck was going to come from and if they would be let go and things like that. So I thought of real estate as just another way to kind of diversify my portfolio and eventually one day give me the freedom to, God forbid if something happened, I'd have that backstop of money coming in.
We're similar there. So I had a W 2 job as well, and I transitioned full time into real estate. And where I am envious of you,
Yes.
maybe that's the right word, is that your day to day is more in the what you own and management side of things, which I have a little bit of, but
Right.
being a realtor is also most of
So
my active income. Can you talk more about hospitality? Because that's its own beast, right?
Yeah, something I didn't really appreciate prior to getting into this. Now I had the help of a couple of partners that were much more experienced than I was. So it's not like I got into this completely blind or anything like that. I started off doing. I did one short-term rental, but that was basically managed by a third-party company. So, but that was a good friend of mine that ran that company that property, and that was based in the Poconos in PA. And so I learned a little bit through that. I got a little bit of exposure, and that kind of gave me the confidence to say, okay, let's do this on a bigger scale. And myself and our mutual friend, we bought this property in Puerto Rico, and at the time we had a partner who was based here, but Basically, it was trial by fire. I mean, I was, for the first 12 months, really up until now, still to this day, I was drinking from a fire hose, and it's a very different business. I mean, it's truly an operational business. You have every day, people coming and going, and constantly learning about things you could be doing better. It's a really good way to humble yourself being in hospitality because you because you think you have everything mastered, and then some situation pops up or somebody has some complaint. There's always going to be a complaint that forces you to kind of think about how you can do things better.
I can't imagine how hard that has to be where it's like
In Puerto
for
Rico too, in Spanish
in
speaking country,
yeah,
yeah.
right. Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I had. It's kind of weird that the universe kind of brought me here because I had been really making an effort to learn Spanish for a number of years prior, and this kind of now gave me a reason to even take it more seriously. So yeah, I do.
I actually took 8 years of Spanish and I don't really know anything. So you got
Same
you
story,
got
yeah.
me beat. That's something that's definitely hard with the language barrier. For something like this though, you are obviously delegating a lot of this work in order to manage, I think you said like 500 to
On.
600 guests a month in just this hotel. So to do something like that, and what does that look like with the hiring process? Are you hiring locals that know how to communicate with these different languages and all this sort of stuff? How do you hire the right people?
Yeah, that's I would say the biggest aspect of this, and probably any business really, is your people. I kind of think about it as like people and processes, and and technology as well. I would add to that, but basically, I'm fortunate that I have a partner who's much more experienced in hiring, and so we've interviewed probably to date maybe 100 or more people just for the few spots that we have. It is kind of there are a couple different areas within the hotel. There's cleaning, there's kind of a general manager type of role that oversees everything. And then there's really like a front desk receptionist. So right now I'm playing the part of front desk receptionist until we hire that out. But basically, between myself and my partner, we worn almost all of those hats, cleaning to a lesser degree. But basically, because we've done each of these, we know really what to look for and what to ask. But that doesn't mean that we've been perfect. I mean, we've definitely made some poor choices in terms of hiring, but the old saying of hire slow, fire fast kind of thing. We've definitely abided by that. But I think if you are constantly thinking about, how can you do things differently? How can you be better than the last hire that you made in terms of like learning from it? I think that's kind of like the only way that you can really improve. So now we have very standardized processes, almost like a whole HR doctrine that we have, like a whole set of SOPs around that, because that's really like the secret sauce of any business is the people that you employ and what motivation they bring to the table every day.
So Mark right now is at the hotel, and he's also in the hallway, I believe. So there might be people walking in and out, and I honestly hope there is, and maybe you speak Spanish to that. We'll get some. So Dylan, I stayed at this hotel about
Mhm.
2 months ago in December of 2025, and it was amazing. It really was. And my favorite part about it, it's the location. It's a great hotel,
Great.
but amazing choice and location. It was amazing. It's right in the center of San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm saying center. I don't really know my San Juan geography, but it's what felt like the center of San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is like a 10-minute walk to the more touristy area, and we would go to dinner, but yet our neighbors were local, farmers markets, and it was a really nice blend of that. And I would go back AF.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think our vision with this whole like offering, I guess you could say, was well, first you have to start with the end in mind. As with any business, like who is your customer? Who are you targeting? And come up with a really, solid, very specific avatar around that. So for us, it was like 20 to 35-year-old travelers who are traveling on a budget, but they don't necessarily want to be just staying at a resort or staying in, a cookie cutter hotel. They want to actually get exposed to what is the real Puerto Rico as I see it. So they want to be close to, the local venues where you can go out and get actual, authentic Puerto Rican food and go to bars where they'd be mixing in with locals and things like that. So I think we have that here and it's super walkable. So super, I guess comfortable to somebody from the Northeast and from the city. Yeah. Those were kind of our goals was to make it authentic, make it economical and then, be accessible and kind of form partnerships with the local community where we could refer business. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we want to make money, and yeah, we want to have fun doing it. But if you're not leaving the community better off, then, like, what are you in business for, basically?
Now, in order to market to those types of people, how do you do that? You're trying to find that specific demographic. You can build a perfect oasis for that person, but in order to attract them all the way to I've never been to Puerto Rico.
If you
I
build
fit
it, they will come.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah,
That's
right. It
it.
seems like
Yeah.
that, but if it wasn't for knowing you now, I wouldn't know about this. But I fit that demographic.
Yeah, totally. I think social media, I think is a big way to extend your reach. We're a small boutique. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're a very small boutique hotel. We have 16 rooms. There are hotels here with 300 rooms, like budgets and people just tasked with marketing. But the way that we compete, I think, is just by yeah, I think today you can compete much more as a small business with some of the big players through social media and things like that. So we've been, aggressively targeting partnerships with, I guess, micro influencers, people who kind of cater to our audience or our desired audience, and having them come here, having them stay with us, setting up itineraries for them to go experience things locally and then talk about those things. That's one way. We're also advertising on a pretty wide breadth of, like, we call them OTAs. Online travel agencies, so Airbnb, Expedia, VRBO, all the big names, as well as some of the smaller names, ones targeted more towards maybe the hostel crowd or maybe the digital nomad crowd. So I think casting a wide net, and then, as far as our marketing efforts, like being very concise and very specific about, like, who you're there for. So one of the big things that we talked about in all of our copy, all of our listings, is what Jake talked about, was our location. What are we close to? We're close to these night amenities, these bars, these restaurants, and so on. So getting a really tight, and then obviously, like, the space itself. So we paid for professional photography. We early on in the process hired a designer who had a really keen eye for, what the area and what our avatar would look for. So we have a kind of distinctive look in that respect. So it's kind of all those things. It's the product, but it's also the marketing and how you kind of position the product.
Yeah, it's not about being better, but it's about being different, because you're never going to compete, and you're not even trying to compete with the Marriott's. But someone who, yeah, I'm in your demographic, right? 20 to 35. I worked while I was there. I stayed with my wife. We both have virtual careers, and it was amazing for us. The Marriott is not amazing for us for what we wanted out of this trip. So yeah, I think actually, now that we're speaking this out loud, maybe niching down your marketing is a really good idea.
Yeah, totally. And I think also the benefit that we have as a smaller company, and this is probably the same in many businesses, is you can be more nimble. You don't have to ask permission of any, it's not like we have a Marriott flag outside, or Hyatt, or any of these companies that have their own restrictions, have their own requirements of us as owners. We can basically do what we want. I mean, for example, I know, Jake, you were outside working on our terrace there on the second floor. Recently, I spend a lot of time here, and I see, what people's patterns are, and I kind of intuit what I think would add value to people's stays. And so recently I realized, oh, well, it'd be great if people were there during the day. And then I realized, oh, it's actually too sunny out there. So let's buy some awnings, let's put up some awnings and do that. And I didn't need anybody's approval to do that. So that's just a micro example of, like, how we're constantly tweaking things to cater to our guest avatar and what they would look for. So we by no means are like a finished product, and we probably never will be a finished product. But we can make changes as kind of the market tells us what they're looking for.
But that's even the better thing. You'll never catch Marriott doing that. You won't. So having that capability to move fast and move to what the client wants, and that's the
I
luxury of
called
that
Mark
business.
and I called Mark in the middle of the night because I wanted a banana split. So, and he delivered it to me. It was amazing. No, I'm just kidding.
No way. That's working out smarter right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to dive deeper into my involvement with this, which I'm actually a private lender into this. The idea that you were taking private lenders and borrowing money, I want you to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. So, in my past real estate life and real estate career, I've always tried to see, okay, how can I have a small piece of a big pie? I'd rather have that than, everything kind of fall on my shoulders, because I really grew up playing team sports. I always, was, I guess, try to play my role, and as far as, like, school projects and, group projects. projects and things like that. And I really appreciate the whole idea of like we're greater than the sum of the parts. I just like teams and working with other people that inspire me. And so having partners, whether it be active partners or passive partners, has always been a part of what I'm trying to do with real estate. Ideally, you create something that's really great, an awesome product. The market rewards you, and as a function of that, like you and all of your partners benefit. So like I really believe in this stuff. Why wouldn't I want friends and family to benefit from this as well? And so, I've done that through joint ventures, I've done that through syndications, and then on this hotel, we've done that through private lenders. This is actually the first time that I've worked with private lenders. I've used hard money before, I've worked with bank debt before, and so on. But my partner, the person that we have in common, Jake, he's a lot much more experienced on that. So when we underwrote the deal, one of the ideas was like, hey, let's give an opportunity to people that we know and that we have good relationships with to participate in this with us and offer them an attractive return, and be able to come along for the ride, and hopefully in the next one we can offer equity, which that would be the goal longer term, is build these relationships and then offer equity on future deals. And so that we did on this one. We underwrote it, and did the deal with private lenders, knowing that we would create enough value on the back end, that we'd be able to pay them back with the proceeds from a refinance. So it's a common strategy. We're not the first ones to do it by any means, but it was that's kind of the way it's worked out. And we're just waiting on the appraisal now, I'm happy to say, to be able to actually do that, pay back you and all the other investors with their principal and interest, which I'm really happy about.
Why would you give up equity if you can do this private lending?
It's a great question. I think there are pros and cons to each. I guess with equity, obviously it's a different risk reward. So you're sharing some more risk as opposed to in your capital stack, your debt is the most protected. So like theoretically, you would have secured debt. So if you screw up the business plan or whatever, those lenders would be able to take the property. Whereas equity, partners basically would share in the upside, share in the downside. So it's just depends on what your investors are looking for, what you're looking for. I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of, equity is the most expensive form of fundraising. But in some cases it may make sense. Maybe you're looking to do a big deal, and you don't think you can raise that amount of debt, but whereas you can attract people with equity because they know the upside is bigger. So it just depends.
So what's the goal? Is the goal to get more boutique hotels?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think my goal is to do more interesting projects. I really enjoyed this process. As I said, this is my first really big hospitality project, and I was involved in pretty much every aspect of this, which has been cool. I definitely have chosen my lane. I know what I don't want to be involved with in future projects, but I think I'd like to work on more bigger projects. We might have to add some, team members and things like that in the future, but I think this was super. It was a super great learning experience for me and kind of a proof of concept. And now I'm ready to kind of like scale up because I think in hospitality, as with many businesses, there's economies of scale. So we did this. It was basically three partners. We did the 16 unit. I'm sure that on the next one, we can probably bite off a 30 unit or 40 unit, just based on what we know from this whole process and all the team members that we've been able to build.
Dylan, have you ever been to Puerto Rico?
Never once.
It was my first time there, and it's my favorite. I'm in Florida right now, and I've been in Florida for a month. And I think that bug of having like 4 days in Puerto Rico a couple months ago made us go to Florida. I think that was really the contributor there. But Puerto Rico might be my favorite trip ever. It's fantastic.
Ever.
Yeah,
Wow.
literally. I would
So
go back. Yeah,
so
if I
I
said.
have to go there then. That means that that is a pretty insane trip. That is cool if you were to almost focus towards like a niche of people that could work remotely, where I know you brought it up before, where it's almost like a hostel and you can have more more, occupancy rate. Actually, but looking at the numbers of what you said, if you have 16 rooms, your vacancy rate has to be insanely low because having that many guests per month, I'm assuming you track that.
Last month, we just kind of closed out the books for last month. I know we put out the newsletter, Jake, and I think I quoted in the high 70s. We actually closed out the month around 83% occupancy, which is tremendous, very high for hospitality. And we're now getting to the point in terms of what they call the ADR. That's like your nightly rate. We're now getting like well above where we kind of underwrote the deal. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to, we're heading into high season here. So looking forward to making some more cash flow.
Yeah. So now you would you be open to a longer stay, like summits? People were to have like host events there and it's a business thing like that. That's just when you do that sort of stuff, it's like you start to have crazy fun ideas like,
Totally. I think it all starts with design. So for us, we had this kind of shell of a building and we did a lot to it, but we didn't change the configuration so much. These are relatively smaller rooms. And that had to do why we're kind of more economic in terms of our price. But basically we don't have kitchens or much common space. We have a few common spaces. But we've had a few longer stays, 2 to 3 weeks. I think anything longer than that, you kind of need some of those things. So maybe on the next go round, we would design the space with that in mind. With this one, I think there's sort of an upper band in terms of like what somebody's willing to put up with, the amount of space. Somebody from New York, New Jersey, maybe they're used to, these small apartments, but if you're looking for something like a kitchen, anything like that, long term, this probably isn't the offering for you, and that's fine. We're not for everybody, as you guys
Yeah.
said, it's niching down.
And I understand there's a lot of tax credits or tax benefits to invest in Puerto Rico. It's something like this. It sounds like a more smarter adventure that you're on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, coming from my Wall Street days, like one of the things you learn early on in Wall Street is like you only want to participate in games or things where you have an edge. Like you really don't want to be getting into a game where you're at a disadvantage. So for this market for Puerto Rico, I don't know of any other U.S. market or part of the U.S. where you get such advantageous benefits by investing there. The island right now is really trying to grow its tourism sector, and they've done a really great job. But it's still a relatively small portion of their overall economy compared to its Caribbean neighbors. So places like Jamaica or Dominican Republic, places that really their entire economies rely on tourism. That's not the case here in Puerto Rico. It still has much bigger sectors in manufacturing and pharmaceuticals, things like that. So they're seeing that there's this opportunity, and they're trying to throw capital and throw incentives at that opportunity. And so one of the things that they offer is hospitality tax credits. So if you kind of abide by a set of criteria, it has to do with hiring locally, certain investments that you're making, capital investments that you're making, and meeting all those requirements, then they're offering you a really massive set of incentives. And so in our case, we were able to take the entire investment, that's the purchase price, the construction that we did, and then the first year's operating expenses, all of those numbers combined. And we submitted our application to the government or the tourism department to basically get 40% of that back as a tax credit. And so that's a massive number. I mean, this is over $1 million project. So, close to $500,000 in tax credits is what we'll be getting back. Now, somebody might be asking the next logical question is like, what is a tax credit? Why does that matter? You can either use that to offset your income. So if you had $500,000 in income, let's say, you would pay zero tax on that. But in our case, we're selling those back to other companies on the island. So you can sell those to large companies on the island that are looking to offset their own taxes, and they'll pay somewhere between 90 and 95 cents on the dollar. So for us, we are somewhere around, like I said, 500,000. It'll probably equate to around 450, 480,000 in actual cash that we're getting back on this project. And that's huge. I mean, think about that. $1 million investment, getting back almost half of that is pretty wild.
Why would you sell that?
Because we can convert it to cash. So versus, we probably won't have $500,000 in income anytime soon. Just
Gotcha.
because
So
of
it's
the benefits of,
excess.
yeah.
Because I'm hearing it's like if I buy a $100 Chili's gift card for like $95, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
But why would Chili's do it? So that's why I asked.
Totally. Yeah. If you don't live anywhere near Chili's, maybe that's like I guess.
That's true.
But you still get taxed on that money though, right? That you make from selling those?
You don't actually. It's tax-free
Good
income.
question. That's a good question.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is. Yeah. So that
So
is
if
definitely
do you ever consider condoing off, or would you no longer receive those tax credits?
So I'd have to ask our attorney if the reason why we can't do it here is because of what I said before. The layout is not right. We can't. People probably aren't going to buy condos without kitchenettes or kitchens or anything like that. The rooms are super small. Some of our rooms are 100 square feet, so it would be a very tiny apartment, especially for San Juan, where people are used to houses, used to, bigger spaces. So that's the first thing. But in terms of could we do it legally, I honestly don't know the answer there. I'd have to ask my attorney.
Well, I'm asking for myself. I would buy a condo.
Oh,
It
nice.
I want the same room I had, top floor, balcony, and I'd buy it.
Well, you're an early investor. You'll always have free stays here. Don't worry about that. It's like a
Well, I wanna
timeshare.
buy it, but thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you touched on this earlier. Like the reason why I'm investing here, first and foremost, is not because of the incentives, not because I love the business opportunities here, which all that is true. But it's because I fell in love with the island. Like I came here 3 years ago now, for the first time. Didn't had my blinders on. Didn't wasn't thinking about real estate at all. But got into the real estate community, started to learn about the opportunities, and I just frankly was like enamored by the island. The quality of life here, the more kind of slower, I guess, way of life here versus New Jersey. The climate year round, beautiful sunny weather, the access to beaches, to mountains, really anything you want within 30 to 40 minutes nearby. And
Amazing.
then San Juan, which is like it's a cosmopolitan city. It's a smaller version of New York City. What I would say attracts people from all over the world, and yeah, and their culture. So for me, it was just a no brainer to move here and to do
You
business here.
you're rubbing it in right now. I'm sitting in 30-degree weather in New Jersey.
I got shorts. I got shorts and a t-shirt on in Florida, but I'm not. I wish
Yeah,
I was in Puerto Rico. I didn't hit up the rainforest. It's the only thing I didn't do when I was there.
Next time. Well, I'll take you on a hike next time.
Yeah, deal.
that's sweet. So, how much of your investments are still in New Jersey?
So I've sold almost everything. I own one condo. That was my first real estate deal I ever did in Jersey City. Besides that, most of my portfolio, I think, as Jake knows, is in the Midwest, is in Louisville, Kentucky. I still have those properties, but pretty much, going forward, everything that I do is going to be based here on the island, just because I think it's such a unique opportunity, and for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
So you still own that condo in Jersey City? You
I
said?
do. Yeah.
Gotcha. Like really good interest rate. That's probably why. Good location.
Exactly. I was looking to sell maybe a year ago. The market wasn't exactly, it was kind of finding its footing. Maybe, I don't have to sell it. So, and I've got it like
Yeah, yeah,
sub 3% mortgage. So it's cash flowing fine. I think the area is going to continue to appreciate. So yeah, we'll see.
yeah. I'm in a similar position in Morristown, but who's your HOA property management company in Jersey City?
So we are self-managed. So we don't have a,
Oh, good for you. Cool. That's cool. That's
thanks.
cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's better than 80% of them. I would love to hear more about the SOPs that you've created for this business and for the hospitality. When my management company, we create SOPs, honestly, it's on Google Docs, Google Forms, Google Sheets. Do you guys have a better way to do it? A more smarter way?
To be honest, that's what we use too.
Okay.
Because our SOPs are like a living document. So we're constantly going back and making tweaks and kind of changing things based on what we learn every day. So for that reason, we needed something that we can all kind of leverage and get access to. So we do have, a printed version now, but it's constantly changing. It's a living document. So we to this day are using Google Docs for that stuff.
Now, so you say you update this all the time with all your employees. Do you have like weekly meetings to go over new rules that you set in place? Or like,
We have regular meetings for sure with different kind of department heads, with our GM, with cleaners, and so on. But it's kind of more ad hoc than that. So as new processes pop up, we use for our project management, kind of to manage our overall operations, we use Asana, which they have a free offering. They also have a paid version, but basically that helps us manage ourselves. So, for what maybe used to be, conversations over the phone, now we just 80% of our communication is either through our WhatsApp channel, if it's something really small, or if it's like a bigger project or bigger task that we have to take on, that's going to be kind of multi-day, very, involved, then we throw it on Asana and manage it that way.
Dylan, does Mark remind you of Josh, our former guest, or just me?
actually, very much.
Right?
I was about to say, I have this written down right now that you're just like so sharp. It's like everything,
Yeah.
like it's not stuttering at all. Knows your facts. Maybe it's your
Yeah.
background in finance. I don't know. It's
Have you been on a podcast tour already?
I've done podcasts before, but honestly, I don't know. You guys are making me blush here because I don't feel like I'm a very clear speaker, a good speaker or anything like that. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
You
But
got like the
no,
startup tone, the startup founder tone. Same with Josh, who is a startup
Yes.
founder. It's very much that type of talking.
It's like you're hungry, like a
Yeah,
hungry
yeah,
speaker. It's like I really want to hear what you're saying. It's great.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I've always appreciated like podcasts and YouTube and all that stuff because I've gained so much from that stuff. So I guess this is kind of my version of like paying it forward a little bit. I mean, hopefully something in here helps somebody. I don't know. This could all be gobbledygook, but it's stuff that's worked for us. So yeah, it's speaking my truth basically.
yeah.
No,
So
it
what
definitely helps.
are you doing out there on a day to day?
Today, I'm still involved, although, every week it becomes less and less involved, and that's really the goal. I'm trying to be, working on the business and not in the business. So today, I'm primarily involved with trying to come up with ideas of how we can create a better guest experience. That's kind of the end result or a high level idea of what my job is here. So whether that means exploring partnerships with other local businesses, creating events here. We have a pretty good sized parking lot, as you saw, Jake. So trying to, put on more events there, things like a movie night, things like different interesting ideas. So trying to, I guess, work on creative ideas about improving people's stays here. Because like you guys are talking about, I mean, if we're not competing with Marriott or Hilton or any of that stuff, but if somebody has the option to pick us versus a Marriott or Hilton, like we want a very distinctive value proposition that they say, okay, this is why I chose a hotel like this because they care, because they do all the easy things right, but also because they go a step further and they provide these extras that we don't get elsewhere.
But I'm thinking if I'm hungry for lunch and I see a Chipotle right there, I want to go there because it's something that I already know. It's like a Marriott. I've been there before. But if I see another Mexican restaurant that's going to give me probably a better quality bowl, maybe for cheaper, and it's also has like one of those like used car place guys flying in the wind or whatever, it has something going on there, I'm going to be more inclined to go there. So it's perfect thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still like working out the kinks and things like that, but everything we do is with that in mind. Is like, how can we make this? We're creating memories. That's the whole business of hospitality. Is we're creating memories for people. So when we screw up, like we're the first ones to say, "Hey, we screwed up. How can we improve this?" Like, is it picking you up from the airport? Is it giving you a walking tour of the area? Like, this stuff is not scalable, I think, and that's completely fine. It's not intended to be scalable. We're at this point trying to create memories for each of our guests. And then we'll figure out how we need to scale this or how we need to come up with a more efficient way to create that in the future. But for now, it's just about, doing that, creating special moments.
Have you ever read the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
read
I
that
read that.
that's prior to this.
Yeah, I read that a bit ago, and I don't have a full memory of all those details, but my biggest takeaway that I do remember is the example was an ice cream parlor shop owner who took 5% of his profits every month to order wooden spoons, like those good ass hard wooden spoons. And he's like, there is absolutely no ROI on that. But that is 5% of our net profit at the end of the month will go to an unreasonable hospitality of some sort. I have taken that over in my HOA management company. So me and my partners, we all have our 5%ers or things like that from that example. Mine is that, and whenever there's a new owner in one of our buildings, I call them and welcome them, which no other HOA management company in the world is doing, especially at the volume that we have.
Actually, so you made me think of something we just implemented was, oftentimes the biggest friction when somebody's coming to a hotel is when they first get there. It's not knowing how to get into a room, not knowing where a certain thing is, or whatever the case. And we noticed that over time. So we're like, hey, how can we make their kind of transition from maybe getting off a flight and, that's a very stressful situation, or getting off a cruise boat or whatever it is, into, laying down in their bed? Like, how can we make that transition much more comfortable? And so now we do exactly what you just talked about. We give calls to guests a couple hours before their stay and ask them like, hey, are you clear on what, how you're going to get into the room? Do you need any pointers on the area? Like, is there anything we need to know that we can, maybe get ready for your arrival? So things like that. Also for longer stays, if somebody's staying there 7 days or so, we don't want to be just, some people don't want to be contacted, and that's fine. We're not going to contact you every single day, but maybe we want to check in mid-trip with people and say like, how's your trip going? What can we do better? How can we provide, a certain service? And so we do that for anybody that stays beyond a certain time period. Upon a certain date, we'll reach out to them with a personal phone call and ask them how everything is going. So it's things like that I think kind of separate us from just a normal, hotel experience.
Is all of this tracked? And the reason why I'm asking that is I saw on your application the repeat percentage of guests coming to stay. So I'm assuming you have like a big CRM of all these different people that you check in on and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally. That's a really important part of our business is trying to because we do all this effort to try to garner interest and try to bring people here, and kind of that acquisition cost is very high. So obviously we want to create a good experience, and that's within our control. But then we want to bring them back. So there are different technologies you can leverage for this. There's some really cool ones actually. But I think it's about being thoughtful about like how do you reach out to those people, not being a pain in the butt, but still letting them know that, hey, last time you were here, you got a great experience. Maybe it's the same time of year, maybe it's your birthday, whatever it is, welcome back. You're welcome back. And, by the way, we'll offer you an awesome guest discount for being such an amazing guest last time you were here.
Yeah, and I felt that hospitality when I was there.
One other aspect of that, of making sure that people are really happy and choose to seek us out next time is, there are a whole bunch of middlemen in this business, the OTAs, the Airbnbs, the Expedias. And so one of the ways that we try to take them out of the equation is by making sure that people know that, hey, you can come to us directly next time. You can book with us directly. You'll save, we'll offer you a lower rate, and we'll still be more profitable, because the margin that they take is around 15 to 20%. So if we can offer somebody, say, a 10% discount, at the end of the day, we're still coming out ahead. It's still a more profitable stay for us. So it's a win-win.
I always wondered that actually. I didn't know how that really worked with. So you have everything posted on Airbnb, VRBO, all those different places.
Yeah, exactly. So we have our entire operation is run on a bunch of different technology, but one of them, and kind of the center nervous system of our entire operation is our PMS, our property management software. So we use one that has channel manager, what they call a channel manager, and basically it syndicates our listings out to a number of different platforms, and it kind of manages to make sure that we're not double booking anywhere, that we have the same price everywhere, and does all of that stuff on the back end.
Very more smarter there. Very,
Very.
it's a technology run business, even though it's hospitality, which is almost the opposite of technology. It's the converging of the two that really, that's how you find value here.
Yeah, I think too, part of any business is like having people where it matters, and then having technology do all the other stuff that you really don't need somebody's special touch for. I mean, so much of what we do is like face to face, and that's what creates a great guest experience. Because if there weren't somebody here in this front desk and there wasn't somebody on call all the time, like somebody would go to an Airbnb. Like, why would you stay at a hotel if you don't have that kind of personalized experience? So it's kind of like knowing where to be high touch and knowing where to be low touch.
Is that 24/7? Like at the front desk?
We don't have someone here 24/7, but we have somebody on call 24/7. So I'm here much of the day. We have somebody supporting the phone line, supporting the guest messaging. And then at night, we have a service that, kind of a VA service that picks up at all hours.
Yeah. That's the tough part, right? That's when all the problems usually tend to happen too, is that is at night. So managing that is big.
Can you tell us like any funny story or crazy story that you've had from a guest?
Okay, I don't know if you want this to be PG or anything like that, but
I'd rather it not
uh,
be PG.
okay, cool. I'll tell you two stories that stick out in my mind. Um, so we are in a great area, as you said, but it's definitely an area that's transitioning. So we have right across the street, we have a Christian charity that gives away food every day, which is awesome. I'm all for that. And so, but the unfortunate part of that is it attracts a lot of interesting characters, let's call them. So one day we had a lady. She was on something for sure, but she went up to one of our cleaners, and she actually had a weapon. She had a knife on her. I'm not sure if she was even aware of where she was or anything like that, but she was wielding a knife, and I had to go out there, and this is not what I signed up for at all. But I was on site, so the cleaner told me, and so I went outside and I had to use a broom to kind of like push her away. Of course, in my Spanish, the hell out of
Wow.
here, basically. Yeah, so that was a fun one. We also had a guest, another drug related story. We had a guest who was on drugs, clearly, because we have cameras throughout our property, and our cleaners came in one morning, and there were two rooms that kind of faced the parking lot, and the glass was completely blown out of those windows, and there was blood. It looked like a murder scene. I mean, it was crazy. And so the cops came and all that stuff. And, I'm kind of trying to do some of the forensics. I'm watching the cameras. I'm seeing what happened. And it turns out one of our guests, this is early on, this is probably within the first month of us opening up. There was a guest that stayed one night with us, and it's always the one night guest that causes problems, by the way. And he was pacing from like 1:30 a.m. in our parking lot. He was pacing back and forth from like 1:30 to about 9:30. So he's definitely on something, definitely inebriated. And then at some point around 9:30, he took a rock and he chucked it into a window. I'm not sure if he was locked out of his room or what it was. Crawled through that window. I guess he must have realized, oh, that was the wrong window. That was the wrong room. Crawls out, and I'm laughing now. At the time, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Takes the rock again, smashed into another window, crawls through that, takes his stuff and heads out. So that was a fun morning because we had people actually staying in those rooms that very next day. So that was a crazy fire drill. But in hospitality,
Jeez.
you get a little of everything. I mean, those are the horror stories, but there are a ton of. I mean, for every horror story, I have 10 really awesome stories about people I've met, people that have new connections that I have, and really great memories that I have from just being here on site every day and meeting so many people from so many different interesting backgrounds. It's been a real pleasure to kind of like offer that service to people of somewhere to stay because I've gotten to meet so many interesting people from all over the world.
Incident, a what the hell moment where you were like, a month in, what did I just get myself into? People are
Yeah,
breaking windows.
thankfully, I mean, I've got prior to that, I have 8 years of multifamily experience, so maybe it's not as many crazy stories, but I definitely have some crazy stories from that whole, journey. So it wasn't like completely foreign to me having these wild people do crazy things at properties. But I definitely, had to think long and hard about it. And I actually approached some other friends who have been in hospitality for much longer, and they're like, "Yeah, no, that's not normal. We haven't had experiences like that." So I was like asking myself, like, "Am I doing it wrong here, or what are we doing here?" So yeah.
I'm just quickly reliving my experience in Puerto Rico in my head, and the food truck area across the street. I'm just thinking how cool that was, and that should be everywhere in America.
Yeah, for sure. Puerto Rico, one really cool thing about their culture is they're super entrepreneurial. Like they're super like industrious people. There's a
Yeah.
there's a word here, pregar, like it's like it kind of means like get by any means necessary. And there's not
Yeah.
really a direct translation. They basically, if they have an idea, like they'll find a way to make it happen. And so that's a great example. Like that's not something you see as much in the States, but they have a lot of areas where you can go, and like food truck parks are like an entire thing where it's almost like a mall food court, except it's outside.
It's so cool. It's on a corner lot. One of them is alcohol, one of the trucks, so it's like a young hangout spot and
Mhm.
great weather, weeknights with the locals. We went there, I think 3 nights of the 4 nights we were there. It was so cool.
That is
Super good.
sweet.
Yeah, I eat there. I eat
Yeah.
there pretty much every time that I'm here.
So do you stay in one of the rooms, or do you have your own place, or how does that
I'm
work?
between places right now. I'm technically homeless. So I'm kind of living between places. During COVID, long story, I guess I'll try to make it short. During COVID, I bounced around a lot. I was working remotely at the time, still on my W-2, but I had a bunch of different projects. I had projects in Philly, I had projects in Virginia. I at like 6 months at a time, I would be in different states, different like localities, and that to me, I mean, it was an interesting experience because I was basically doing like live-in flips or like live-in rehabs. So it made me comfortable with the idea of like living in a construction site. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think when I have a significant other or whatever, maybe that changes. But for now, I'm kind of like used to it. I'm building now an apartment that I'll live in. More stable living for a more extended period. But right now, I'm living between a hotel room and a construction site elsewhere, different part of the city.
That's
First
fun.
homeless guest, Dylan. This is cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the
Check
last.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right, check that one off the bucket
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, I know some of the like finance people and real estate people are like, "Oh, you should never own." Like this is, I'm definitely abiding that advice. Like I'm not
Yeah.
owning.
Yeah. Own where you live, that's like the Grant Cardone thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
exactly.
so before we cap it off, I wanna learn a little bit more about your investing in Kentucky. I'm assuming this is out of state. Did you ever live in Kentucky when you were made these investments?
No, 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 no. So in my real estate journey, I kind of looked further and further probably around 2018 through 2019, I started looking outside of New Jersey. I started looking at, initially at Eastern Pennsylvania, did some stuff there, and then started looking at Tennessee and Nashville. Basically, I got a more and more of a kind of comfort level with, investing further afield and really partnering with people that are kind of could be my local boots. Just because, in our area, obviously prices are so high, it's difficult to acquire a lot of units, and that's kind of was my goal, was to scale my portfolio in terms of unit count. And so at that time, I had been, like I said, getting further and further outside of Jersey, and there was a mentor of mine who was looking to sell one of his properties, and I had already been looking at the Louisville market, and he was like, "Hey, you want to make an offer on this, off market? If it makes sense, we'll do it. If not, it's fine." So made an offer, myself and a few other partners, and got that under contract. And I'm sure it's probably the same with you guys. Like, if you focus on a market and start to build up context there, it's sort of like the momentum starts to happen for you. Like you start to get more projects or more opportunities there. That was definitely the case there. We're like, we got a property manager. Well, we cycled through a few different property managers. We found one that we liked, and then he actually owned a property right behind ours. So we picked up another 12 units there behind our initial 32 units. And then, we got in contact with another broker who had 49 units on the other side of town. And so kind of one thing led to another. And we had a really good team on site there in the city. And so now we have about close to 100 units there locally.
So Mark, yeah, this has been amazing. I appreciate you taking the time and hopping on here and learn a little bit more about the boutique and hospitality world.
Boutique.
Yeah, so where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, email me, Mark, MARC at investwithmaple.com. You can find me on Instagram, Mark, MARC _ my last name, Weisi, WEISI. Really find me anywhere. I'm always willing to help. Like, it's really my joy, but like it's my most profound joy to be able to like help others that are maybe a couple steps behind me, because I had so much help in getting here. I believe in that saying, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. I really do believe that it takes a village. And so to this day, I try to give of my time pretty freely to help others avoid mistakes that I made.
First person to give us an email address.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's usually a social media. That's cool.
I know, which I like. I like
Yeah.
that. So when I'm booking my stay this year, where am I going? Where am I going? What website? Am I just honking into like a shell? What am I doing?
Show up. Yeah.
Yeah, we prefer if you reach us through our website or book through our website. It's hotelluzpr.com. It's HOTELLUZPR.com. You can also call us. Our number is 787-523-8431. And we're happy to give you, you can just mention that you listen to this, and we're happy to give you guys or your audience a discount in getting down here. Definitely, if you do stay here, definitely reach out to me because I want to meet you when you're on island.
Nice.
And so, yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
So that's Hotel
Definitely.
Luz, LUZ. Love it.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to episode 33 of the More Smarter Show. Like, follow, and subscribe.
Only if you like it.